Hey guys, this is my How I Interact with Language presentation, my identity text. So, as a language user, I use language basically every single day, like most people, and I mostly use English, but I'll use various varieties of English. So, as you can see by my poorly drawn diagram, I'll use Midwestern English, I'll use academic English in certain circumstances, I use slang in certain circumstances. So I kind of put English as my predominant self, but then I have these like resources, these legs that I use in different circumstances. And I also know a decent amount of German. I know a little bit of ASL, and I'm beginning to learn Spanish and Hmong. And these are more situational, so it depends on who I'm with and what I'm kind of doing, whether I'll be using it or whether it's just words or if I actually can say phrases or something. And I also included math and music because they really, to me, are like specific languages. They have specific languages and lingo that are only the in-group knows or that mean different things than symbols. And so I think that's like a resource I have in my communicative repertoire. And I think as you can see in my other diagram, I use languages differently with different individuals and spaces. So you'll have my field site where I'll have certain things, and I'll have like that'll be different in class. So I particularly see my language use, I think, through a lens of kind of roles, which is really interesting. So I don't necessarily talk about like what I say with certain people or what language specifically I'm using, but it's more of at my field site, if I'm acting as a supervisor, that's different than I'm acting as a student, then I'm acting as a peer to certain students, then I'm acting as kind of a teacher of language. I use languages in different ways in these circumstances. And just the same as in class, the student-teacher dynamic is different than the peer-to-student dynamic, which is different than trying to be academic or trying to be like a friend. As a language user that I've figured out are kind of awareness of how I use language. It can really lead to a sense of humility and knowing what's my place, what isn't my place, what do I need to learn and grow, and where can I pull from other resources and strategies. And it really shows that everyone's multilingual. Everyone utilizes language in unique ways, and they all are like assets in our tool belt. As a language learner, I think I really connect with stories. I really love movies. I really love books. So I think as I worked to learn Spanish for this class, those modes were the most engaging for me. So I read Harry Potter in Spanish, which I know very well. I watched the movie Coco in Spanish with some subtitles in English. So I think interacting with these texts really brought in colloquial language and culture, and it has a lot of usable communicative repertoire and phrases and just things not necessarily that are maybe the grammar and the vocab. That being said, I think the foundation of grammar and vocab is kind of you need in tandem, so I enjoy doing this in addition to Duolingo. But I don't know if I would love learning a language of just Duolingo. Like it's more than that. And I think as a kind of a language learner, this activity really made me realize that I actually learned more in high school and college foreign language classes than I'd think. And I think a lot of many of the processes and structures of learning a language are repeatable. So if you've learned a language before, you can really make a lot of connections to that. But the real important thing is language learning isn't easy. And we need to remember that first and foremost when we're in the classroom with students. It's really hard to learn a new language. And it's scary, and you don't like being judged, so we need to make space for questions and to be vulnerable. And we need to make space for students to interact in different modes with books, with writing, with videos, with talking with others, with reading on their own. Language learning in isolation is so much harder. As a language analyst, I spent a lot of time on social media, so I thought it was really interesting to kind of looking at my multiliteracies and my language use, looking at these in kind of like similarity and difference together. So I think when I think about Facebook, Facebook used to be very, very text heavy and writing heavy, and now it's a lot more videos, news articles, and you've got some people who are kind of police the grammar, some people who act like they're writing academic papers, and you got other people who are kind of like using texting lingo, and it's very, very different. Twitter, on the other hand, it's constrained by literal character limits, and that totally changes the conversation. And then you got Instagram, where language is used kind of as a support mechanism for the visual, and it's very, very different than like language being, like writing being the heavy focus. And the big point is we all use language in different ways, and that's okay. We use it in different ways throughout our day and throughout our lives. And looking at my poorly drawn diagram again, I think it's interesting that I looked at learning other language for this class, my field site, it really illuminated the process of how I learned German and kind of differences between languages. So Spanish and English are going to share structures and similar features, but they're also going to have differences. German and Spanish, German and English, Hmong and German, Hmong and English, etc. Like learning Hmong, for example, is a tonal language, which requires kind of a very different set of materials and experiences, a lot of literally conversational, than learning German, which can be done a lot more maybe through grammar and vocab online, where most pronunciations are similar to English. So seeing how these languages are similar and different really makes me more open, and I think other people more open to the wonderful possibilities of language and how a communicative repertoire can utilize kind of the best of each of these. And we need to use these similarities and differences as kind of entry points for students to see oh, that's really a lot like that, or oh no, that's different, I'm going to remember that now. And then finally, as a language advocate, a lot of my stuff for my action plan for 672, I think I really still agree with, and I agree with almost more after learning about this class and after going through kind of the language learning process in this class. So I really believe in affirming students' linguistic abilities and their communicative repertoires. That should be a priority because it shows students we care, and it shows that we're going to fight for their identity because language and culture are tied. And we need to look at language and students from an asset-based view. Like I said before, no one likes to feel like they're judged, and going through the language learning process in this class and learning about the features of language, it's hard. So let's support positive. And I think being an advocate, the other thing I really think about is sometimes I'll have power at the seat at the table to advocate myself, and sometimes I just need to be an ally in any way the community needs me to. So the students and community members should be given the platforms to advocate for themselves. They're going through the struggle. They know what they need. And I'm going to try to open any doors that I can to do that.